It always felt like everything needed to be perfect. I had this invisible checklist in my head. Wake up at 6 a.m. Answer emails by 7 o'clock. No mistakes in meetings. No unexpected events. If something went out of line, even slightly, my mind would spiral. I didn't just want control over my life. I demanded it. And when life didn't obey, I blamed myself. Or worse, others. I used to believe control was power. That if I could predict, plan, and execute everything just right, I could avoid pain, failure, embarrassment. I micromanaged everything, my relationships, my work, even my thoughts. I read books on productivity, made vision boards, and forced myself to smile even when I felt like falling apart. Outwardly, I looked successful. Inwardly, I was drowning. There was a moment, and I'll never forget it, when everything cracked. It was during a pitch meeting at work. Months of preparation, sleepless nights, refining every slide. I thought I had nailed it. But the client, they just shrugged, said it wasn't what they were looking for. I smiled, thanked them professionally, but inside, something snapped. That evening, alone in my apartment, I sat on the floor, surrounded by crumpled paper and the eerie glow of my laptop screen. And I realized I wasn't angry because I failed. I was angry because I thought I couldn't fail. But I didn't, and that terrified me. The more I tried to force life into a predictable shape, the more chaotic it felt. Even small things would shake me. A late train, a missed call, plans changing at the last minute. My chest would tighten. My thoughts would race. I'd obsess over what I could have done differently. I couldn't sleep. My mind became a battlefield of what-ifs. That's when I started asking questions, not about others, about myself. Why did I need so much control? Why was uncertainty so unbearable? Why did letting go feel like death? The truth hit me slowly, over days of silence and long walks without music or distractions. I didn't fear life. I feared being vulnerable. I feared not being enough unless I controlled every variable. I feared being seen as weak, as messy, as incomplete. But life doesn't work that way. It never has. Somewhere along the way, I started to realize control wasn't keeping me safe. It was keeping me imprisoned. And that realization didn't free me immediately. It unsettled me. It scared me. But it also cracked something open. I didn't know it then, but this was the beginning of a different kind of journey. One that didn't start with more control, but with the courage to let go. I didn't go looking for a Zen master. Honestly, I didn't even believe in that kind of thing. After everything collapsed, the failed presentation, the rising panic attacks, the constant exhaustion. I just knew I needed to get away. Not forever, just ... for a while. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere where the phone wouldn't ring and I wouldn't be expected to be anything for anyone. A friend recommended a small retreat tucked away in the mountains. No Wi-Fi, no schedule, just old wooden cabins, silence and fog rolling in every morning like some kind of ancient ritual. I booked it on a whim. I didn't pack much. A few clothes, a journal, and the parts of myself I didn't know what to do with. The first few days were unbearable. I thought I came to escape the noise, but the real noise was inside me. The silence outside only made it louder. My thoughts screamed. Regrets, plans, worries, guilt. I couldn't sit still for 10 minutes without feeling the need to check something, fix something, plan something. That's when I noticed him, an old man, probably in his late 70s, sitting by the koi pond every morning before sunrise. He wore a simple gray robe and sat so still, so peacefully. It was almost like he wasn't part of the physical world. I ignored him at first, but one morning, as I walked by in a haze, I muttered something under my breath. A joke, maybe. Something sarcastic about finding peace in cold tea and dead silence. He opened his eyes and looked straight at me, calm, steady. Then he smiled. "Trying hard, aren't you?" he said. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Maybe he could see it in my face, the exhaustion, the tension in my shoulders, the way I couldn't even breathe deeply without it feeling like a chore. He motioned for me to sit beside him. I hesitated, but I sat. For several minutes, we didn't speak. He didn't tell me his name, didn't ask for mine. He just said, "You've spent so long building walls inside your mind, you forgot how to sit in an open field." I didn't understand it at first, but his words stuck. Every day after that, I returned to the pond. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. But when he was, he would speak, not in lectures, not like a teacher, but like someone placing small stones in my hand and letting me decide what to build. "You think control brings peace," he said one morning, "but it only brings resistance. You are water pretending to be stone." Another time, "The tighter you clench your fist, the faster life slips through." I asked him once, "Then, what should I do? How do I fix it?" He smiled again, that same quiet smile, and said, "Let go of fixing. Begin by noticing." That day, I sat longer than usual. I noticed how the wind moved the trees without asking, how the clouds drifted without direction, how the koi in the pond moved in gentle, effortless rhythm. not trying to control the water, just dancing within it. I didn't realize it then, but something had begun to soften in me. Not everything, but a little. It was the beginning of listening. Truly listening, not just to the world around me, but to the silence within me. It was on the fifth morning that he said something I couldn't ignore. "You're still carrying yourself too heavily," the old man murmured as we sat by the punt again. "Your ego," he added, "is the heaviest baggage you have." I didn't like that word, ego. It sounded abstract, clinical, like something from a psychology textbook. But he didn't mean it that way. He said it like he was talking about something alive, something hiding just behind my eyes. I asked him, "How do you let go of something you can't see?" He plucked a single leaf from the ground, held it up between us, and asked, "Is this leaf who it thinks it is, or simply what it is?" I was silent. He dropped the leaf into the water, and we watched it float. That's when I started noticing how often I spoke from the ego without realizing. The need to be right, the hunger for recognition, the endless comparing, better than him, worse than her, smarter than this, not as successful as that. Even in silence, my mind argued with ghosts. I'd recall conversations from years ago, imagining better responses. I'd craft imaginary futures where I'd finally prove myself to the world, to my parents, even to the people I no longer spoke to. And deep beneath all of it was fear. The ego, I realized, wasn't pride. It was fear dressed up as pride. Fear of being unseen. Fear of being unloved. Fear of being ordinary. One evening, while sweeping leaves outside the cabin, I remembered something the Zen master said days earlier. You are not the image in the mirror. You are the space that sees it. For the first time, I truly looked at myself, not through the lens of achievements or failures, not through the curated version I shared with others, but through the stillness that just observed, without judgment, without narrative. I saw how much of my suffering was self-made. How many of my days were spent protecting a self-image I didn't even like. I wanted to be seen as strong, intelligent, independent, but I was exhausted from performing those roles. That night, I wrote in my journal, what if I stopped needing to be anything? It wasn't a statement. It was a question, a trembling one. Because if I wasn't all the labels, the titles, the accomplishments, the compliments, then who was I? The next morning, I asked the Zen master that question. He simply said, when you stop asking the world who you are, you will hear the answer rise from within. He didn't explain. He never did. But I was beginning to understand. Letting go of the ego wasn't about killing it. It was about seeing it for what it is, a mask made of fear and hope, useful sometimes, but never the truth, the the real self. That was something quieter, simpler, and it had been waiting underneath all along. The real shift didn't happen in a single moment. It came slowly like sunlight melting away the early morning fog. One afternoon, I was sitting beneath a tree near the edge of the retreat. A gentle breeze passed through the leaves above, casting moving shadows on the ground. Everything felt still, yet alive. I wasn't thinking about the future. I wasn't replaying old failures. I was just ... there. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I needed to be anywhere else. That's when I understood what the Zen master meant by acceptance. It wasn't passive. It wasn't resignation. It was clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you stop fighting the present moment. For most of my life, I thought peace would come after I fixed everything, after I solved my problems, achieved more, became someone better. But the more I chased that future, the more distant peace became. I was trying to arrive at stillness by running faster. But peace, I learned, doesn't wait for perfection. It arrives the moment you stop resisting what already is. I remember telling the Zen master, "I'm afraid that if I accept things as they are, I'll lose motivation. I'll stop growing." He looked at me kindly and replied, "Acceptance is not the end of growth. It is the soil in which real growth begins." That stayed with me. Acceptance didn't mean I stopped caring. It meant I stopped clinging. I stopped trying to force life to match my expectations. Instead, I began to observe, lifelike watching the sky, changing and shifting. Without needing to paint it a different color, I started to accept my own imperfections, the restless parts of me, the anxious thoughts that still visited sometimes, the old wounds that hadn't completely healed. I began to see them not as enemies to fix, but as visitors to greet. Teachers, even. There was a strange power in that. One evening, as I packed my bag to return home, I realized how different I felt. My problems hadn't disappeared. My past was still my past. But the grip I had on everything, and the grip everything had on me, had loosened. I didn't need to control every outcome. I didn't need to win every argument. I didn't need to prove I was okay. I just needed to breathe, to return to the moment, to allow things to be as they were. As I said goodbye to the Zen master, he handed me a small, smooth stone. He said, "This is not for protection. It is a reminder." "A reminder of what?" I asked. He smiled. "That peace is not something you search for. It's what's left when you stop searching." Now, back in my busy world, when stress creeps in, when old patterns try to return, I place that stone in my palm and pause. I breathe. I listen. And I remember. Peace was never missing. It was only hidden beneath my resistance to now.